A decisive snap echoed from the front door, followed by the sound of heels clicking on the tiles. Not hastily, not leisurely, but deliberately. Amanda always walked as if the hallway was a catwalk. Tonight, even with the heavy silence between us resembling solid cement, she still sauntered past me with her head held high, twirling the small silver bracelet around her wrist, a habitual motion that seemed more like a nervous tic. Yet, she wasn't tense. Far from it. She paused near the hallway mirror and touched up her lipstick. Red, a color she hadn't worn in years, not since our third anniversary in Miami. Back then, she wore red for me. This time, it wasn't for me. From the living room, I asked, "Are you going out?" I had stopped feigning reading. The book lay open on my lap, unturned for 20 minutes. She didn't turn to face me, just smirked at her reflection in the mirror. "Unwind," she said, picking up her handbag from the table. "It's just a date." I remained silent for a moment before responding. I observed her as the hallway light cast long shadows on her shoulders, and she seemed to invite it intentionally, every word, each step, not to be caught, but seen. She appeared to anticipate my outburst, my confrontation, perhaps my destruction. However, I neither yelled nor fought. Instead, I rose leisurely, moved towards the kitchen, and discarded my ring from my finger. I didn't hurl it or swear, I merely placed it on the counter near the dish rack and pressed it there till it ceased spinning. She didn't inquire about my actions, nor even flinched. The door closed behind her as she left. Amanda and I had crossed paths 11 years ago at a friend's wedding. Back then, she was a dynamite personality. Bold, sharp. Her laughter could silence a room and draw all eyes towards her. I admired her wildness, her unpredictability. What I failed to understand was that being wild doesn't always equate to loyalty, and unpredictable behavior doesn't stop simply because a ring is involved. The initial years of our marriage were genuinely satisfying. Dear friends, if you enjoy this story, please like and subscribe to our channel. It will motivate us to make more videos like this for you. Our relationship wasn't flawless, but it was satisfying. We embarked on journeys via road trips. Our arguments were prolonged, intense, and passionate, followed by longer periods of resolution. She would occasionally surprise me at work with lunch, leave notes in my luggage when I traveled. She breathed life into everything. However, she eventually stopped. It wasn't a sudden event initially. It was gradual, like the slow growth of mold that you don't notice until the room is filled with its odor. She ceased to find humor in my jokes, her messages became terse, she started going out late and claimed she lost track of time. She began locking her phone, turning it face down. She stopped grabbing my hand when we sat in the car. All these small changes accumulated until they were no longer negligible. One evening, I inquired whether she still cherished me. Instead of replying verbally, she merely sighed and returned to her phone scrolling. That was 4 months ago. The event is etched in my memory because that was the night I started sleeping with my back turned towards her. She used to keep me warm at night. She would intertwine her legs with mine during sleep, resembling interlocked puzzle pieces. Yet our bed now is merely a divide between two individuals, partitioned by fabric and quietude. I should have detected earlier that something was amiss. Amanda isn't neutral. She is either warm or cold. Lately, whenever she gazed at me, her eyes radiated exhaustion mixed with an impersonal patience, similar to how one regards a tolerated colleague. Tonight, however, she appeared stunning. That's the most agonizing aspect. Her gown was deep blue, not once asking for my opinion on it because she no longer sought it. The scent that wafted from her was stronger than usual, a fragrance I had never before detected on her. I couldn't place it, but I understood its purpose. She was dressing up for someone, and it wasn't me. I chose not to inquire about her destination or company, since I already knew. Not the name, perhaps not even now, but the attitude, the defiance, the manner in which she departed, aiming for the door to close forcefully enough for me to sense its echo. At the kitchen table, I examined the ring, its glow still lingering from my touch. 9 years. 9 years of striving, pardoning, convincing myself she was merely pressured or fatigued or simply wired differently. 9 years of attributing harsh blows to miscommunications. She declared, just a date. For the first time, I acknowledged that I wasn't wedded to a woman unknown to me. Instead, I had tied the knot with a woman indifferent to my knowledge that I hadn't slept that night. That evening, I spent hours gazing at the ceiling, one arm cradled behind my head, the other vacant where her presence once was. Her side of the bed remained untouched. The sheets were immaculate, as if pressed in a hotel room. I kept glancing over, hoping she'd return, confess it was a prank, a fabrication, a test, or a scene from some melodramatic podcast she loved. Yet, the quiet persisted, and the clock struck past midnight, then 1, then 2. I observed the numbers anxiously, anticipating an arrival that would never materialize. At around 2:41 a.m., the headlights illuminated the bedroom wall. I remained motionless, only listening. The click of her key, the sound of her shoes on the tile, and the rustle of fabric as she removed them echoed in the room. There was no remorse in her movements, no hesitation, not even a pretense of quietness. She entered the bedroom humming, not someone returning from her marriage, but rather from a night of dancing. She spotted me awake and blinked, as if I were the one invading. "You're still up?" she questioned, effortlessly slipping out of her dress without an attempt at concealment, casually tossing it onto the chair where my jacket had lain for 3 days. She made her way to the bathroom to remove her makeup, carrying on as if this were ordinary. I remained silent. She picked up on my silence. Her tone altered, a hint of irritation creeping beneath the surface. "Stop playing games," she pleaded. "I had told you it was just a date." She reappeared, makeup free now. Derek's robe gaped open, suggesting modesty was obsolete. "Are you truly angry?" she queried, voice amplified, eyes sharpening. "I had warned you I needed to regain vitality. You expressed a desire for my happiness. Or was that only when I was wretched with you?" Still, I remained silent. She snorted derisively. "Goodness, you're so theatrical, Derek." She settled into bed. Not her customary side, not mine. Instead, she sprawled across the center as if she ruled the space. That instant, realization struck me. Not with anger, not even sorrow. Just something empty. I didn't recognize this woman. Once, she inquired about my day. Now she demanded my tolerance for hers. I turned away, preferring to avoid her. I had no desire to observe her. No wish to scent the cologne she returned home with, a fragrance not mine. She mumbled something indistinctly below her breath. Perhaps my name, perhaps not. And within 5 minutes, she was asleep, as if nothing transpired. I remained motionless, gazing at the wall, and contemplated the last instance she had kissed me, not out of duty, but passionately. Not the breakfast before work type, the true one, can't recall. In the dark, the ring lay on the downstairs countertop, and I knew, without even picking it up again, that I wouldn't be wearing it anymore. The day dawned, gray and quiet. Amanda was not there when I woke up. No note, no message, no sound of a car engine, just the lingering scent of her perfume on the sheets and an almost empty bottle of orange juice left on the counter, dripping sweat into the ring resting on the wood. I didn't go to work that day. Couldn't. My body moved mechanically, shower, coffee, toast, but my mind was far away. My phone vibrated twice around 10 with emails, but I chose to ignore them. My thoughts were fixated, replaying last night on a constant loop, every word, every second, the way she said just a date, as if our entire life together was an old sweater she could casually discard. I tried to make excuses. Perhaps she was experiencing some midlife crisis. Maybe this was her form of rebellion. But the reality was more distressing, and I was well aware of it. The morning passed with me restlessly wandering. At 11:14, I decided to scrutinize her laptop. She seldom touched it these days, preferring her phone for convenience. Yet, it still linked automatically to our home internet. I wasn't certain what I sought. Perhaps nothing, maybe everything. I needed no excavation. Messages awaited me. Many. One tab remained open, displaying a polished booking confirmation for a cabin 2 hours distant. 2 names graced the receipt, hers and someone named Tyler. That was it. Neither Amanda nor Derek, but simply her and Tyler. This man she'd never spoken of. No preamble, no backstory. Merely the stark revelation she had planned an escape, a romantic one. Excluding me, the messages made for a cruel twist. I perused 3. That was all I could endure. She called him T, claimed he reawakened her, affirmed she wished she'd met him before the turmoil. That phrase struck harder than any blow I've ever sustained. The mess, that's what I represented to her. My home, my recollections, my pledges lie in disarray. I shut down the laptop. For 32 uninterrupted minutes, I sat in the kitchen staring at the floor, my fists clenched tightly. The urge to shatter something, to yell, was overwhelming, yet I remained still. My heart pounded like a war drum, my breathing shallow as if I'd run for miles. At midday, she texted me, "Don't wait up tonight." No remorse, no explanation, just that. I gazed at it, immersed in thought, before responding. "I won't." That moment marked a transformation within me. The man who was patient, forgiving, eternally hopeful, he vanished. What remained was someone harder, more lucid, and weary of deception. I started collecting my belongings, not hers, but mine. I took a duffel bag from the closet and began neatly folding clothes, as if preparing for a lengthy journey. However, I wasn't going anywhere. Not just yet. I merely needed to act. I required control. I placed her cherished wedding gown, which she wanted to keep in the guest room as a memory, into an airtight bag and stored it in the garage. Yes, a memory indeed. Afterward, I sat down and composed a letter. Not a farewell message, but a documentation. A description of who she had transformed into. An account of what I had neglected. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel bewildered. Instead, I felt prepared. By the time she arrived home that night, I had already made up my mind not to engage in her game any longer. No more acting. No more silence. No more allowing her to talk in enigmas while I deciphered her pain as if it were a puzzle I owed her the courtesy to solve. It was past midnight once again. This time, I didn't hide in the bedroom. Instead, I sat in the kitchen at the table under the faintly buzzing dim overhead light. I had my laptop switched on, not for display. I was logged into our shared bank account, scrutinizing the transactions. She didn't notice me immediately. I heard the door unlock. Her genuine, airy, melodious laugh echoed from the entranceway, a sound I hadn't heard in years. A moment of silence followed, devoid of another voice. Only the sound of keys dropping into a ceramic dish, footsteps shedding her heels, and the soft shuffle of unconcealed movement. When she rounded the corner and spotted me, she blinked and murmured flatly, "Oh, you're awake." I remained still. "Where have you been?" Amanda shrugged nonchalantly, leaning against the wall as if aggrieved. "Do we need to revisit this again?" I responded calmly. "No, I want honesty." She sneered, but I stood my ground. For years, she's used that sneer to trivialize, evade. "Not tonight. Let's have dinner and drinks first," Tyler said, mentioning his tough week as if it should concern me, as though this was routine. I nodded. "So now you're acknowledging it, simply stating it." "What?" she asked, her arms crossed now. "A date." She stared at me for a second before the facade crumbled slightly. "What difference does it make?" "You already knew," I replied. "You seem eager for a confrontation." I placed my phone aside. "Amanda, I suspect you're unfaithful." A slight twitch in her jaw was her only response, followed by laughter. Indeed, laughter. "Do you truly regard this as infidelity?" she retorted, moving towards the fridge and pulling out a wine bottle as if hosting a dinner party. "You've been distant for years, Derek. Don't feign being a martyr." These words chilled me. She filled a glass without inquiring about my preference, something she hadn't done in months, taking a long sip. "Yes, you do. You work, sleep, and accomplish nothing more. You evoke no emotions." At least Tyler pays attention. This was the first time she mentioned him aloud. Tyler. She uttered his name as if he were an old friend, as if she hadn't just destroyed our marriage and left the wreckage in designer boots. Is this justification enough? I questioned her. Deceiving me? Engaging in secret liaisons. She eye-rolled again. "I didn't conceal it. I informed you. Tyler." Her laugh echoed with emptiness. "You confessed after violating every boundary set." Her countenance twisted in irritation as I refused to rewrite our narrative. "You simply refuse to acknowledge your mundanity," she retorted, nearly sneering it out. "I desired more. You offered less." The words lingered like smoke in the room. Dense. Bitter. She ambled past me, glass in hand and seated on the couch. Just as our conversation dwindled, the tension dissipating, as if we were merely two flatmates with conflicting sleeping habits. I observed her intently. A subtle fracture spread within me, a soft, hopeful part breaking. Not shattered completely, cracked, because the total shattering was yet to come. "I seek a separation," I uttered eventually, the words slipping from my lips like icy metal. She didn't show any sign of surprise. She didn't flinch. neither when I stated the word nor even when I repeated it, more deliberately, as if she hadn't heard me the first time. I want a separation. She took another sip of her wine and let the silence expand between us, the weighty quietness that's far from uneasy, but lethal. Then she spoke without glancing up. All right, that was it. No surprise, no objection, not a single feigned tear, just all right, as if I'd suggested sleeping in the spare room for the night, not splitting our lives apart. I remained standing, struggling to define the feeling coursing through me. It wasn't rage. I had moved beyond that. It was something darker, more unsightly, a form of grief, not for her, but for the man I once was when I believed she cherished me. I'll consult a lawyer this week, I stated calmly. We'll work out the house and Rudy. That caught her attention. She turned sharply. You aren't taking the dog, she retorted. You think you're some sort of savior here. You aren't, I countered. I don't aim to be a hero. I want to be free. This struck a nerve. Her expression flickered. She moved towards me slowly, still clutching her wine, her voice now softer, yet insincere. Is that it then? She inquired. You're finished? I met her gaze, feeling as though it was the first time in months. No, I replied. You were done. I'm just playing catch-up. Seeing her about to speak, possibly for a guilt trip or tantrum, I opted not to listen. Instead, I passed her and entered the bedroom, shutting the door behind me. Again, sleep eluded me. I lay on the bed, gazing at the ceiling, hearing her in the adjacent room. At some point, she switched on the television. I heard laughter, a program she once urged me to watch with her. I often agreed even when I held no interest. Now she was watching alone. In the darkness, I reflected on the instances where I gave her the advantage of the doubt. The nights she stayed late at work but never brought her laptop home. How many untruths had I accepted just to maintain harmony? That night, I made a list of everything. The weekend getaway lacked a schedule and communication. Unusual wardrobe swaps, new undergarments, a cologne unfamiliar to me. Passwords mysteriously altered. Names on her phone she never disclosed yet smiled at. Dated entries, now confessed. By dawn's light, I had filled 2 pages. Then it struck me. It wasn't solely about Tyler. It was about her. Amanda was absent long before she physically departed. The ensuing morning brought an odd silence, not tranquil but heavy like the stillness preceding a storm. Amanda remained asleep on the couch, half-empty wine glass beside her on the coffee table, TV remote in her grasp. A replay of a cheerful show was still playing, the type that facilitates ignoring reality. I chose not to rouse her, nor did I leave a message. I simply picked up Rudy's leash, my keys, and departed. No specific destination in sight, just required space. From the distance of the house, the lingering scent of her perfume on the drapes, the familiar couch where she reclined as if solitary once more. After nearly 2 hours behind the wheel, I stopped at an unoccupied lakeside trail that Rudy and I used to traverse when he first joined us. In those days, she was still with me, still grasping my hand, still finding humor in trivialities. With a joyful leap, Rudy exited the vehicle as though nothing amiss, tongue out, tail a-wagging, oblivious to deceit. He simply recognized presence. I found solace on a bench overlooking the water, attempting to draw breath. The reality had solidified now. She'd opted for another. Over time, over honesty, over me. The most disheartening aspect was not that she'd done it, but how effortlessly she did it. How she didn't cast a glance back. How she had already revised the narrative in her mind, casting me as the antagonist and herself as the persecuted heroine merely seeking to live. Midday, my phone vibrated. A message from Amanda. So, you plan to vanish now? Grown-up behavior. I examined it. The audacity astounded me. No apology, no remorse, no hint she'd contemplated her actions for a moment. Just accusations, as if I were the one breaching a sacred trust. I remained silent. She messaged again after 10 minutes. If you don't wish to address this issue, simply say so. Stop playing the saint. This comment brought a genuine, sharp, and bitter laugh from me. What issue? I considered inquiring. She hadn't shown interest in addressing anything when she climbed into another person's car at night. Now that she discovered I wasn't adhering to the role she scripted for me, the forgiving, silent husband who'd accept her back with a sigh and a glass of wine, That character was lost. I shut off my phone. That afternoon, I sat with Rudy and formulated a strategy, not a dramatic one, not the type requiring ultimatums or shouting, just a list, clear, straightforward, precise. Consult a divorce lawyer, secure my finances, have my name removed from joint accounts. Find a temporary accommodation, bring Rudy along. This is not open for discussion. Additionally, an item I highlighted thrice. Make sure she doesn't alter the storyline. Amanda would attempt to do so, as women like her often do. They reframe betrayal as poetry and transform blame into self-care. She will label me as bitter, distant, and emotionally unavailable. However, none of these accusations can change the truth. She made a choice. Someone else over me. She lied, and I am through giving her additional opportunities she did not extend to me. Upon my return shortly after sunset, the house was dim, the kitchen being the only lit room where Amanda sat casually on a counter stool, seemingly unaware of the bombs she'd been detonating in our marriage for weeks. In hand, she held a wine glass once more, a constant companion these days, her shield, her alibi, her ritual. "You've decided to return home at last," she said without looking at me. I released Rudy's leash, allowing him to rush to his bed. I remained silent. She turned, leaning against the counter, arms folded. "So, what's next, Derek? You depart, shun me throughout the day, then what? We feign being a unit again." I edged nearer, but not excessively so, close enough to spot the flash in her eyes as she recognized my unwillingness to adhere to her role. "There isn't a we left," I declared. "All I returned for was to inform you of what's to come next." She paused, and for the first time since this ordeal started, she hesitated. A moment of quietude, suspense, the control she exerted, the sneers, the mockery, the casual harshness. It wavered slightly. "I'm filing," I stated bluntly. "Separation, divorce, whatever phraseology expedites this. You understand?" Her tone escalated. "Really? You're a coward." That comment was the catalyst, that label. "Coward," I advanced. "No, a coward is someone who deceives their spouse for months. A coward is someone who creeps around in secret and then has the audacity to be outraged when they're exposed. A coward is one who labels it as merely a date and expects me to feign pleasure. You think I surrendered? You discarded me. You didn't seek a companion but an audience." Her countenance stiffened. "You don't understand the feeling of being unseen in your own home." I almost chuckled. "Amanda, you weren't unseen. You were merely disengaged. Instead of communicating, instead of making efforts, you decided to alter the rules and accuse me when I didn't applaud." She clutched her wine again, her hands trembling now, the first fissure in her composure. "You're misconstruing things." "No," I replied, more composed now. "I'm just recognizing the truth for the first time in a long while." She fell silent. She looked away. And that was when I realized something harsh, yet liberating. She didn't anticipate me to depart. She thought I'd rage, threaten, perhaps weep, but not leave. Because fundamentally, Amanda believed I relied on her more than she ever needed me. Now, confronted with the reality I denied, she found no words left. I turned, heading towards the hallway. As I neared the bedroom door, she called after me. "You'll regret this." I halted but didn't look back. "No," I said, "but you might." The following morning was unnaturally silent. No accusations, no passive-aggressive comments, no door slamming. Amanda kept her distance. I could sense her movements from afar across the house. The sound of coffee cups clinking, bag shuffling, and hurried footsteps of one trying to hide but still be seen. She departed without a farewell. I utilized that time to make phone calls. By 10 a.m., I had spoken to a lawyer named Carla Jensen. Straightforward, businesslike, no sweetening. She listened as I detailed everything: the lying, the emotional neglect, the infidelity, and then posed me the question I'd been dodging since it began. "Do you wish to fight for this?" The response slipped out before I could even ponder. No. Afternoon arrived. I began retrieving items from my drawers. Only mine, not hers. Old receipts, statements, documents, and my grandmother's watch tucked away in a shoebox under the bed. Remnants of who I was before Amanda persuaded me to relinquish myself for tranquility's sake. I settled down and assembled a folder, named it Amanda Exit. I inserted every piece of proof I had: Photos of messages I'd witnessed, screen captures of the cabin reservation, even bank statements showing late-night charges from eateries I hadn't visited. This wasn't about revenge, it was about protection. Amanda always had a knack for twisting events, converting disputes into accusations, transforming facts into emotions. I knew how this would unfold when paperwork reached her inbox. She would cry to her friends, claim I was cold, say I gave up, say I didn't try. This time, I wouldn't be bereft of evidence. Amanda arrived home later than normal, around 8. On our back porch, Rudy at my feet, the July orange sky above, Amanda entered without a word, questioning softly, "Are you truly doing this?" Ignoring her, I affirmed, "Yes, I am." After a prolonged silence, she spoke up. "I assumed. I thought you'd just accept it. We'd find a new rhythm. You'd pursue your path, I'd mine, and we'd maintain the house, the life." Facing her then, I declared, "This isn't marriage, Amanda. This is mere survival. The moment you started living as if I didn't exist, I stopped surviving." That evening I moved to the guest room. She seemed poised to retaliate, to argue or lash out, but remained silent, knowing deep down that I was right. The master bedroom no longer felt mine. It belonged to her. Her scent lingered, her robe hung on the door, memories of deceit within those walls haunted me. I needed to leave that behind. The guest bed was uncomfortable, the room chilly, but for the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully because for the first time in a long while, I wasn't awaiting her return. The following days felt like wandering through the remnants of a once-beloved city. Amanda seldom spoke. She brewed coffee without being asked, tidied the living room excessively, played music softly as if we were still pretending to be normal. Yet her acts failed to stir me. I saw through them, recognizing desperate attempts to mask reality. She hadn't foreseen this new me, the silent, composed, resolute one. She had anticipated tears, outbursts, a collapse. But what she encountered instead was a man who had ceased bleeding for a woman who never provided healing balm. Thursday saw me delivering the first set of documents to her. Upon arriving home, she discovered an envelope on the kitchen counter, her name neatly inscribed on it. No message, no clarification. She barged into the guest room 20 minutes later, papers in hand, visibly angry. "Are you serious?" she snapped. I glanced up from my computer. "Indeed. You could have discussed this with me first." "I did," she retorted, remaining calm. "For months. You simply refused to listen." She threw the envelope on the ground. "You're really going to portray me as the antagonist?" "It seems that way," I replied. "But the part where you chose to be with someone else while married to me, that's all on you." "I wasn't dating him," she countered immediately. I cocked my head. Cabin bookings, shared dinners, late nights, deception towards me. What would you label it? She looked at me as if she wished to strike or weep, but did neither. Instead, she stood there, panting heavily, her chest heaving like she was preparing to feign victimhood. "You know something?" she eventually said. "You've always been fixated on being the good guy. Calm, logical, flawless. It's tiresome." I gradually closed my laptop and rose. Perhaps. But at least I didn't ruin the person who cared for me in pursuit of a feeling that will fade within a year. Her expression crumbled, not from pain I inflicted, but because she recognized the power she once had to wound me was lost. I passed her without any hostility or outburst. Just a man finished. She didn't pursue me, didn't call my name. She remained in the doorway holding the documents as if they represented an unexpected judgment. That night, I added a final entry to the list I'd been compiling in my notebook since this began. July 5th. After months, she acknowledged the reality I had known. She's no longer mine. 2 days passed, and Amanda started packing without notice or farewell. I returned from walking Rudy to discover her hastily stuffing clothes into a black suitcase as if preparing for an immediate departure. Her actions were swift, brisk, almost hostile. Each piece of clothing she folded seemed like an unspoken dispute she was trying to avoid. I stood against the doorway, silent. She ignored me. "I'm going to my sister's place," she said at last. "Okay," I responded. She hesitated, anticipating a plea, a quarrel, something from me. When none came, she faced me, her arms crossed. "You're not even going to beg me to stay." I looked directly at her. "No, because I won't implore someone to love me anymore." Her jaw tightened. "That's unfair," she retorted. "You're right," I admitted. Fairness would have demanded honesty, loyalty, and respect, qualities you withheld from me. She looked away, and for a moment, I perceived something flicker in her eyes. Perhaps guilt, maybe fear. Perhaps it dawned on me then that this wasn't an act. I wasn't pursuing her. She fastened her bag. "You seem to think you've been flawless throughout," she retorted sharply. "I haven't," I replied. "But I've been here. I've shown up every day. You vanished months ago, taking your physical presence with you." Her lips quivered. For the first time since this began, I observed Amanda visibly disturbed. Not because she missed me, but because she had lost control of the narrative, the one in which I was a passive, forgettable figure, too kind-hearted to depart. Now I was leaving. She shouldered her bag and brushed past me. No farewell, just keys in hand, door slamming shut. The ensuing quietness wasn't agonizing. It was liberating. I took care of Rudy, prepared dinner for myself, settled on the couch, and switched on the TV without asking if she minded the noise. I didn't ponder over where she might be or who she could be with. For the first time in an eternity, the house wasn't oppressive, but instead felt clean. 9:43 p.m. An enigmatic message arrived from an unfamiliar number. "She isn't who you believe. You deserve better. My apologies for the delay. Signed, T." I stood frozen, struck speechless. No response was needed. The revelation had already surfaced, piece by piece. Her deception now threatened to shatter entirely. It seemed even Tyler eventually discerned the truth. I chose not to answer Tyler. No reply was necessary. His message was not for me. It was a self-confession, a narrative unwinding from the other side of their story. The illusion Amanda had crafted around him couldn't withstand scrutiny under the glare of reality. I envisioned it fractured in the same manner as our marriage, swiftly, loudly, and devoid of alibis. Tyler now saw her for what she was, not a monster, but reckless enough to destroy whatever she touched without hesitation. She didn't return home that night nor the next. I made no inquiries about her whereabouts. I did not contact her sister. The quiet grew comfortable, neither warm nor harsh, merely truthful. The type of quietness that doesn't deceive you. I started collecting what belonged to me permanently. Every photograph where we feigned smiles but felt no sincerity packed away. Each present she bestowed upon me after an argument discarded. The couch we selected together remained. I no longer had any interest in taking furniture with me. All I desired was space. The lawyer contacted me. The paperwork was being processed. She would be served legally next week. I felt nothing when informed of this. Not sorrow, not contentment, merely progress. On Saturday, I cleaned the garage, discovered an old shoebox hidden behind paint cans. It contained cards written by Amanda over the years, birthdays, anniversaries, preliminary notes before everything turned sour. I sat on the floor and read one from our second year of marriage. It said, "You're the safest refuge I've ever known." I pondered that line for a considerable time, because I trusted her words, because I was that sanctuary, until she set fire to the place and accused me of the smoke. I destroyed the box. I wasn't seeking confrontation or retribution, but I chose to discard deception as I transitioned into the next phase of my life. I had no desire to haul along tales that had crumbled under their own weight. That evening, she reached out with a text saying, "Can we talk?" There was neither an apology nor an explanation, just a tentative line thrown to gauge if I'd reel her in. I remained silent. An hour later, another message read, "You're being distant." Our shared past caused me to hesitate. Yes, we had a shared history, but I was the one who constructed it, sustained it, and carried it when she abandoned it, except in name. She enjoyed the rewards, not the responsibilities. Again, I didn't reply. The following morning, I blocked her number. That moment signaled my liberation, not because she had departed, but because I no longer yearned for her return. On a Tuesday, Amanda was served legal documents. I wasn't present during the event. It was unnecessary for me to be there. The lawyer took care of it. All I received was an email confirmation. With it, the last bond tethering me to a woman who was no longer familiar began to unravel. That night, I settled in my recently acquired flat. It wasn't grand with a compact kitchen, affordable window coverings, and a view of another building's backside. Yet, it belonged to me, pristine, unmarked, devoid of spectral whispers. No remnants of deceit in the linens. Just myself, a worn-out coffee table, a mattress on the floor, and Rudy snoring like a sawmill nearby. It was tranquil, Not the tension of a crumbling bond, not the quietness laden with unsaid words, but a genuine, sincere calm. A quietude that didn't prompt questioning. A quietude that fostered room for silence. I anticipated feeling void, isolated, even remorseful. Yet all I felt was steadfast. I'd acted on what mattered most. I left when it would have been simpler to remain bitter. I opted for clarity over tumult. And though Amanda might spin her tale to any willing listener, painting me as cold, distant, inaccessible, I couldn't care less. For I knew the truth. I afforded her numerous opportunities. I granted her patience, compassion, affection, forgiveness. I completely surrendered myself to her. She wagered that I'd never depart. Yet I did. She told me to relax. It was merely a date. She intended to wound me, but what she truly accomplished was liberating me. Now I bear no ring, not because I misplaced it, but because I grasped its lessons. Fidelity isn't a debt owed to those who spurn it. Affection doesn't justify deceit, and regardless of how much time you put into someone, the instant they stop appreciating you genuinely is when you are granted permission to depart without explanation. So, my counsel to anyone pondering this, questioning if they're excessive, questioning if perhaps they demand too much honesty, respect, you are not. If your instincts are shouting, heed them. If the narrative doesn't align, delve deeper. And if someone confronts you with falsehood after falsehood, don't expect truth in garlands. It never will appear. Some individuals do not deserve your forbearance. Some people simply do not deserve you. Neither do I harbor affection for Amanda, nor will there be a renewal of love. That truth, above all, encapsulates our conclusion.